Silent harbingers. The rain drummed against the massive radio telescope dish at Arecibo Observatory, each droplet adding to the symphony of white noise that Dr. Naomi Westfield had learned to filter out over her 8 years at the facility. Puerto Rico's night sky was hidden behind a blanket of storm clouds, but Naomi's attention wasn't on the visible sky. It was fixed on the data streaming across her monitors from the depths of space. "That's not possible," she muttered, adjusting her glasses and leaning closer to the screen. The quantum fluctuation patterns from the Kuiper Belt region showed distinct regularities, patterns that shouldn't exist naturally. "Talking to yourself again, Westfield?" Dr. Jefferson Rhodes appeared in the doorway, coffee mug in hand, his perpetually rumpled lab coat suggesting he'd spent another night on the cot in his office. "You know what they say about scientists who do that." "They make the greatest discoveries," Naomi replied without looking up. "Jeff, come take a look at this. These energy signatures don't match anything in our database." Rhodes sighed and ambled over, the skepticism evident in his weathered face. At 58, he'd seen enough anomalous readings to develop a healthy pessimism about breakthroughs. "Probably just equipment interference from the storm," he said after glancing at the screen. "Run a diagnostic and recalibrate. You know how sensitive the quantum detectors are to atmospheric disturbances." Naomi shook her head. "I already did twice. These patterns are coming from approximately 4.2 billion kilometers away just beyond Pluto's orbit, and they're moving, Jeff, on a trajectory toward Earth." "Moving objects in the Kuiper Belt aren't exactly news, Naomi. Comets, planetoids." "With perfect synchronization." She pulled up additional data. "Look at this. 23 distinct energy signatures, maintaining exact formation despite gravitational influences from Neptune and Uranus. This isn't natural drift." Rhodes's expression shifted from dismissive to concerned as he studied the patterns. "How long have you been tracking this?" 3 days. At first I thought it was a glitch too, but the pattern is too consistent to deliberate." She hesitated before adding, "I think we need to notify global defense." Rhodes straightened, suddenly looking every year of his age. "That's a serious escalation, Naomi. We need absolute certainty before we start ringing alarm bells about potential. What exactly are you suggesting?" "I'm not suggesting anything," she replied carefully. "I'm reporting anomalous data that indicates intelligent direction. GDI should know, even if it turns out to be nothing." 48 hours later, Colonel Ezra Blackwell of the Global Defense Initiative strode through Arecibo's main entrance, flanked by 2 analysts carrying advanced equipment. The colonel's dark uniform contrasted sharply with the casual attire of the observatory staff, his presence immediately altering the atmosphere from academic to military. "Dr. Westfield," he said, extending a hand, "I understand you've detected something of interest." Naomi led the team to her laboratory, noting how the colonel's gaze cataloged everything they passed. The GDI had been formed 15 years earlier, ostensibly as an international coalition to address asteroid threats, but rumors persisted that their actual mandate extended to extraterrestrial contingencies. 23 objects, she explained, displaying the latest data. Moving in formation at approximately 30,000 kilometers per hour, they've passed Neptune's orbit and are continuing inward. "Natural phenomena?" Blackwell asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. "Impossible," Naomi replied. "They've adjusted course 7 times to maintain perfect spacing. They're compensating for gravitational influences with precision that exceeds our best navigational systems." One of Blackwell's analysts, a woman with a severe ponytail and intense eyes, was already connecting their equipment to Arecibo's systems. "Energy signatures are consistent with advanced propulsion technology," she reported after several minutes. "Definitely not natural and not matching any known human designs." Blackwell nodded grimly. "Dr. Westfield, as of this moment, your discovery is classified under International Security Protocol 7 Alpha. No communications about this matter to anyone outside this room." "Colonel," Rhodes interjected, "we're scientists, not military personnel. You can't just—" I can and I am, Doctor, Blackwell replied evenly. What you've discovered may represent the most significant event in human history. We need time to prepare an appropriate response. The following week passed in a blur of activity. Additional GDI personnel arrived, converting part of the observatory into a command center. Other observatories worldwide confirmed Arecibo's findings, though the public remained unaware as governments implemented contingency plans developed decades earlier for this exact scenario. Naomi found herself working alongside GDI's top scientists, her expertise in quantum astrophysics proving invaluable as they analyzed the approaching entities. Sleep became a luxury as the objects, now codenamed Harbingers by GDI staff, continued their methodical approach. They'll reach Earth orbit in approximately 12 days, she reported during a briefing on day 9. Based on their current trajectory, they'll position themselves in geosynchronous formation around the equator. Offensive capabilities? Asked General Vivian Hendricks, who had arrived from GDI headquarters in Geneva. Unknown, Naomi admitted. But their energy output suggests immense power generation. If those are vessels, they're each approximately 2 kilometers in length. And we're certain they've detected us, Hendricks pressed. They adjusted course specifically toward Earth, Blackwell confirmed. This isn't random exploration. They're coming here deliberately. The room fell silent as the implications settled over everyone present. Humanity faced an imminent encounter with beings possessing technology far beyond current capabilities, with unknown intentions and overwhelming power. What are our options? Hendricks finally asked. Diplomatically, we prepare first contact protocols, said a State Department liaison. Militarily, we have nothing that could meaningfully engage objects of that size in orbit, Blackwell stated bluntly. Our best satellite weapons would be like throwing pebbles at a tank. Naomi cleared her throat. There's something else you should know. She pulled up a separate analysis screen. The energy patterns these objects emit, they're not just propulsion signatures. There's another component, a harmonic resonance that doesn't serve any obvious navigational purpose. Meaning, Hendricks prompted. They're either communicating or scanning, possibly both. The resonance patterns interact with matter in ways I'm still trying to understand. It's almost like they're tasting our solar system. On day 11, as tensions reached a breaking point and world leaders prepared for possible panic, the Harbingers broke their silence. The message came simultaneously through every radio telescope on Earth, a data burst that resolved into both audio and visual components. The being on the screen resembled nothing from human experience, a shifting mass of translucent tissues interwoven with crystalline structures that refracted light in hypnotic patterns. When it spoke, the voice seemed to bypass the speakers entirely, resonating directly in the minds of those watching. People of Earth, the translation matrix interpreted. We are the Meridian Collective. Your world has been selected for harmonization with the greater galactic community. Resistance is evolutionarily counterproductive. You have 14 solar rotations to prepare your biological and technological systems for integration. Guidance protocols will follow. The transmission ended, leaving the assembled leaders and scientists in stunned silence. 14 days until whatever harmonization entailed began. That didn't sound optional, Blackwell said, breaking the silence. Integration with a collective, Rhodes muttered. That sounds disturbingly like assimilation. Further transmissions arrived hourly after the initial contact. The Meridians shared technical specifications for harmonic converters they intended to establish at strategic points around the planet. Devices they claimed would facilitate Earth's integration into their communication and energy network. They're terraforming devices, Naomi concluded after analyzing the schematics. Not in the traditional sense of changing atmosphere or temperature, but something more fundamental. They're going to alter Earth's quantum resonance to match their own. And what happens to us in this process? Hendricks demanded. Naomi hesitated. Based on these specifications, organic life as we know it would undergo forced evolution, Our cellular structures, neural patterns, even our consciousness would be rewired to function within their collective. That's not integration, Blackwell said grimly. That's extinction of humanity as we know it. While world governments debated responses, from attempted appeasement to futile military options, Naomi worked feverishly to understand the meridian technology. Something about their harmonic patterns nagged at her scientific instincts. The mathematics underlying their quantum resonance seemed oddly familiar yet impossibly advanced. On day 23, with the Meridian vessels now in Earth orbit and smaller craft beginning to descend toward the designated converter sites, Naomi made her breakthrough. Their entire technology is based on harmonic resonance, she explained to the crisis committee. They don't just use it for communication or power, it's fundamental to their biology, their consciousness, everything. How does that help us? Hendricks asked. Naomi displayed a series of equations. Every resonance pattern has nodes, points of vulnerability where counterharmonics can disrupt the entire system. The Meridian's quantum signature has 7 such nodes, corresponding to specific energy states that can be targeted. With what? Blackwell asked. We don't have weapons that operate on quantum harmonic principles. Not weapons, Naomi corrected. Counterfrequencies. If we can generate the right quantum interference patterns at sufficient scale, we might be able to disrupt their technology long enough to force a reassessment. Rhodes looked skeptical. You're talking about quantum jamming a civilization advanced enough to travel between stars. With what technology? That's where it gets interesting, Naomi said, a glimmer of hope in her eyes for the first time in weeks. Part of their resonance pattern interacts with our planet's own electromagnetic field. They chose Earth specifically because our planet's natural frequency is compatible with their technology. But that compatibility works both ways. It gives us an access point. As the Meridian converters began establishment at 7 locations around the globe, the Amazon Basin, Siberia, Central Australia, the Sahara, Greenland, the Indian Ocean, and Antarctica, humanity prepared for its greatest gamble. Based on Naomi's calculations, they had one chance to disrupt the harmonization process before Earth's fundamental resonance shifted beyond recovery. If we're wrong, Blackwell said quietly as they finalized preparations, this is humanity's last stand. Naomi nodded solemnly. And if we're right, it's just the beginning of something no one could have predicted. As the Meridian harmonization sequence initiated, painting the skies with ethereal auroras of alien energy, humanity prepared to execute its desperate countermeasure. The fate of Earth's future hung in the balance, dependent on understanding an alien technology that operated on principles barely comprehensible to human science. The countdown began, resonant countermeasure. The skies above 7 continents shimmered with undulating patterns of light as the Meridian converters activated. From Arecibo's hastily converted command center, Dr. Naomi Westfield watched the feed from Antarctica with growing dread. The converter there, a crystalline structure that resembled a massive fractal orchid, pulsed with increasing intensity, sending ripples through the atmosphere that were visible even on satellite imagery. Quantum distortion levels increasing exponentially, reported Dr. Tamara Volkov, a Russian physicist who had joined their team 3 days earlier. Her fingers flew across the holographic interface. The Antarctic converter is already affecting the continental shelf at the molecular level. Colonel Blackwell's weathered face remained impassive, but the tension in his shoulders betrayed his concern. Timeline. At current progression, we have less than 18 hours before phase lock occurs, Naomi answered. Once all 7 converters synchronize, the planet's resonant frequency will be permanently altered. Professor Darius Okafor, a Nigerian acoustics expert who had been analyzing the Meridian communications, burst into the room. His normally composed demeanor had given way to barely contained excitement. I've identified a critical weakness, he announced, bypassing all protocol. Their biological systems are hypersensitive to specific acoustic patterns, particularly infrasound combined with certain electromagnetic frequencies. He projected a complex waveform onto the main display. This is the acoustical counterpart to Dr. Westfield's quantum resonance theory. It creates a cascading interference pattern that could destabilize their technology. How did you determine this? Blackwell demanded. Analysis of their communication patterns revealed micro-disruptions whenever our planet's natural seismic activities produced certain frequencies. They compensate almost instantly, but there's a momentary vulnerability. Ockhafer's eyes gleamed. They evolved on a world without significant tectonic activity. They never developed biological defenses against certain vibrational patterns. Naomi felt a surge of hope. So we combine approaches, quantum disruption and acoustic interference simultaneously. Precisely, Ockhafer confirmed. But we'll need delivery systems capable of generating enormous acoustic power, precisely calibrated and globally synchronized. The HAARP array in Alaska, suggested General Hendricks. It can be reconfigured to generate the electromagnetic component. And for acoustics, Blackwell asked. Natural amplifiers, Naomi said, inspiration striking. Earth's own resonance chambers, major cave systems, oceanic trenches. We position modified seismic generators at key points to create a standing wave pattern that will interact with the meridian frequency. What followed was a desperate race against time. While the meridian converters continued their inexorable harmonization process, humanity mobilized its last resources. Special forces teams deployed to remote locations, carrying experimental technology developed by a global coalition of scientists. Urban centers near converter sites were evacuated under the pretense of unexplained atmospheric phenomena. The Meridians seemed aware of the increasing human activity, but made no move to interfere. Their smaller vessels continued methodical survey patterns, occasionally extracting soil, water, and atmospheric samples. When approached by military aircraft, they simply generated localized energy fields that disabled electronic systems without causing physical damage, a demonstration of technological superiority that rendered conventional weapons useless. In Geneva, diplomatic channels remained open, though the conversations were increasingly one-sided. The Meridian representatives, holographic projections of the crystalline entities, reiterated that harmonization was not negotiable, merely describing the process as an evolutionary acceleration beneficial to all sentient consciousness. They don't view this as conquest, Dr. Rhodes observed during a briefing. They genuinely can't comprehend why we'd resist what they see as advancement. Philosophical differences mean little if the end result is the extinction of human identity, Blackwell countered. How long until the countermeasure is ready? 12 hours, Naomi replied. We've configured 28 deployment sites to create the necessary global coverage. The challenge is synchronization. The acoustic and electromagnetic components must activate simultaneously with millisecond precision. As the deadline approached, an unexpected complication arose. The Meridian vessels altered their energy output patterns, suggesting they had detected the preparations for the countermeasure. They're adapting, Naomi realized with dismay, studying the new readings. Their harmonic signature is shifting to a different frequency range. They must have detected our acoustic preparations. Can we adjust? Hendricks demanded. Professor Ockhafer worked furiously at his station. Yes, but it will require recalibrating every deployment site, and they'll likely adapt again once we activate. Then we need to move faster than they can adapt, Naomi said firmly. We implement in phases, staggered activation designed to mask our true frequency target until the final moment. The revised plan was dangerously complex. The first phase would deploy apparent countermeasures designed to draw the Meridian's adaptive response in a predictable direction. Secondary and tertiary phases would follow rapidly, each seemingly targeting different frequency ranges. The actual countermeasure, precisely calibrated to the Meridian's core resonance, would activate only when their adaptations had committed to a specific pattern. It's like a chess gambit, Blackwell mused, sacrificing pieces to create an opening. With the entire planet as the board, Rhodes added grimly. As the first harmonization threshold approached, teams worldwide moved into final position. Communication systems had been hardened against disruption, and backup protocols established in case of failure. The planet's population remained largely unaware of the true nature of the crisis, though panic had begun spreading in regions where the Meridian influence was most visible. Phase 1 initiating, announced the operations director, her voice steady despite the stakes. Acoustic generators activating in sequence. Around the world, specialized equipment began generating infrasound pulses targeting the superficial frequency layers of the Meridian technology. The response was immediate, fluctuations in the converter energy patterns as their systems detected and compensated for the interference. "They're adapting exactly as predicted," Okafor reported, tracking the changes. "Phase 2 ready on your mark." "Execute Phase 2, Blackwell ordered. The secondary measures activated. Electromagnetic pulses from modified satellite arrays combined with ground-based acoustic generators operating at higher frequencies. Again, the Meridian technology adapted, shifting its harmonics to a more resilient pattern. "Phase 3 in 5 seconds, Naomi called out. "All stations confirm readiness." This was the crucial moment. The final phase had to deploy with perfect synchronization across all sites. If the Meridians detected the true pattern before it reached critical mass, they would adapt before the disruption could take hold. 3, 2, 1, execute. Around the globe, the true countermeasure activated. Natural cave systems amplified precisely calibrated acoustic frequencies, while HAARP and similar facilities generated complementary electromagnetic patterns. The combination created a complex interference web targeting the 7 nodes Naomi had identified in the Meridian quantum signature. For several agonizing seconds, nothing happened. Then, almost imperceptibly at first, the converter energy patterns began to fluctuate. "It's working," Rhodes exclaimed, pointing to the monitoring display. "Harmonic disruption detected at all 7 sites." The disruption grew rapidly. The crystalline structures of the converters began vibrating at frequencies visible even to the naked eye. In Antarctica, the massive structure emitted a keening sound that registered across the entire acoustic spectrum. "They're attempting to compensate," Okafor warned, tracking the rapidly changing energy signatures. "Adaptive algorithms engaging. We have perhaps 2 minutes before they neutralize the interference." "Increase amplitude on all channels," Naomi instructed. "Push to maximum sustainable output." The countermeasure intensified, straining the hastily assembled global network to its limits. Equipment failures began reporting from multiple sites as systems overloaded, but enough remained operational to maintain the critical interference pattern. On the main display, the Meridian motherships could be seen changing position, moving to support their failing converters. Smaller vessels deployed in defensive formations that suggested alarm, the first indication that the collective was genuinely threatened. Then came the response. From each mothership, a focused energy beam struck the planet's surface, targeting the largest acoustic generation sites. Secondary beams sought out the electromagnetic transmitters. One by one, the components of humanity's countermeasure were silenced. "We're losing coverage," the operations director reported urgently. "Critical failure in 17 deployment zones." Naomi watched in despair as the interference pattern weakened. The converters, momentarily destabilized, began re-establishing their harmonization sequence. Within minutes, they would complete their adaptation, and the opportunity would be lost forever. In that moment of apparent defeat, Dr. Westfield had her final insight. "The planet itself," she whispered, then louder. "The planet itself, Earth's electromagnetic field, we can use the converter's own energy against them." Her fingers flew across the interface, modeling a desperate theory. "The converters are already interacting with Earth's natural field. If we can induce a geomagnetic reversal pulse using the remaining HAARP systems, the resulting shockwave through the field would amplify our remaining acoustic interference by an order of magnitude. A geomagnetic pulse could fry every electronic system on the planet," Blackwell objected. We've already shielded our critical systems against meridian interference, Naomi countered. Those same protections should buffer against the pulse. It's our only remaining option. After a moment of tense silence, General Hendricks nodded. Do it. The reconfiguration took precious minutes as the converters continued their recovery. When the sequence finally initiated, the effect was unlike anything humanity had witnessed. The electromagnetic pulse rippled outward from the HAARP facility, initially invisible but growing in power as it interacted with Earth's natural field. When it reached the first converter in Siberia, the crystalline structure flared with brilliant light before shattering in a cascade of energy. The effect repeated at each converter site as the pulse traveled around the globe. In orbit, the Meridian vessels experienced similar disruptions, not destruction, but a system-wide failure that left them temporarily dormant. For 9 long minutes, the skis were still as humanity collectively held its breath. Then a new transmission arrived, different from the previous Meridian communications. This one displayed not the crystalline entity, but a being of pure energy, its form constantly shifting in patterns too complex for human vision to fully process. Unexpected resistance capability observed, the entity communicated directly to the command center. Harmonic incompatibility greater than initial assessment. Integration parameters require recalculation. The being paused, as if considering its next statement carefully. Your species has demonstrated evolutionary potential beyond standard metrics. Forced harmonization deemed counterproductive to collective expansion. We withdraw pending reassessment. The transmission ended. In orbit, the Meridian vessels began powering up their propulsion systems, moving away from Earth in the same perfect formation they had arrived in. Are they leaving? Rhodes asked incredulously. Tactical withdrawal, Blackwell suggested, still skeptical. They'll return once they've adapted to our countermeasure. I'm not so sure, Naomi said, studying the retreating energy signatures. Their final message suggested something more fundamental. I think we surprised them, showed them something they didn't expect to find here. Which is, Hendricks prompted. Harmonious dissonance, Naomi replied thoughtfully. We combine technologies and approaches in ways their collective consciousness couldn't predict. Unity without uniformity, perhaps that's something new even to them. In the days that followed, Earth began its recovery. The damaged converter sites were quarantined for study, yielding technological insights that would advance human science by decades. The brief electronic disruptions from the geomagnetic pulse had caused widespread but repairable damage to infrastructure. More importantly, humanity had experienced its first truly unified moment, a global effort that transcended national interests in the face of existential threat. From this crucible emerged the Terrestrial Defense Network, an international organization dedicated to advancing understanding of both the technologies and the philosophical implications of the encounter. 6 months after the Meridian withdrawal, observatories detected new anomalies at the edge of the solar system, not returning invaders, but automated probes bearing messages from other non-Meridian civilizations. Earth's successful resistance had apparently registered across interstellar communication networks, announcing humanity's emergence onto a much larger stage. We're not alone in resisting harmonization, Naomi explained to the newly formed Interstellar Relations Committee. These signals suggest multiple civilizations exist beyond Meridian influence, some of which may be potential allies. As Dr. Westfield gazed at the star charts displaying these new contacts, she reflected on how completely one anomalous reading at Arecibo had changed humanity's understanding of its place in the cosmos. The silent harbingers had arrived to change Earth, never expecting that Earth would change them instead. We should prepare a response, suggested Colonel Blackwell, now Director of Extraterrestrial Defense. Yes, Naomi agreed, but not just a defensive one. This is our opportunity to define ourselves to the galaxy, not just as survivors, but as a species worth knowing. As humanity drafted its first intentional message to the stars, the Meridian vessels continued their journey outward. carrying with them new data about a small blue planet that had revealed unexpected truths about harmony, resistance, and the countless ways consciousness could manifest across the cosmos. In their collective awareness, Earth was no longer designated for harmonization, but for observation, a rare world where dissonance itself created possibilities even a galaxy-spanning intelligence had never before imagined.